Hi guys, how are you all doing? This is the tennis world with the tennis expert. I am your tennis expert. I'm just here to review the Wimbledon, but mostly the Wimbledon final. Um, Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Djokovic in 5 sets, and he's the Wimbledon champion 2023. Here we are, tennis world with a tennis expert. There is a bit. I've delayed this video a bit, like a couple of weeks. And the reason being is, well, like I had a health issue that I had to deal with, and it's mostly dealt with. But just finishing that off, but I am good enough to do a video now. So that's the reason. I would have usually done the video a day or two after the Wimbledon final. Had to deal with a health issue, mostly dealt with it, and now I can do the video. That's the reason for the delay. But Carlos Alcaraz has beaten Novak Djokovic in 5 sets. And first of all, we've seen Djokovic upset in Grand Slam finals, like Stan Wawrinka did it, Murray did it, you know. But generally, Wimbledon and the Australian Open have been his strongest two Grand Slams, right? For Novak Djokovic. US Open, French Open, that's where all the upsets, that's where most of these losses, that's where most of these final losses, but not very strong at the Australian Open and at Wimbledon. But the place where this was going to be like the most safe for him to win against someone like Alcaraz was at Wimbledon, because even though he's great at the Australian Open and Wimbledon may be better at the Australian Open, Alcaraz is great on hard court and clay, right? So on hard courts, Djokovic is great at the Australian Open, Alcaraz is also great, right? But on grass, where Djokovic is just about as good at the Australian Open, he's still one of the two that he's dominated since 2011 up until the end of last year. In that period, Djokovic had 8 Australian Open, 7 Wimbledons. So he's very strong. He hadn't lost a match on centre court for 10 years. So yeah, he's just about as strong. But the difference is, when it comes to grass, that's a new surface. This is Alcaraz's 4th grass court tournament ever. So you've got Djokovic dominant. Djokovic not losing a match on Wimbledon centre court for 10 years. And Alcaraz just learning this surface, as opposed to the Australian Open, where Djokovic is dominant again, but he lost on centre court in 2017. Was it? Even 2018. Yeah, 2018. Yeah. But he's dominant there too. But then Alcaraz is very good on hard court. Played hard courts his whole life. But the biggest Grand Slam where Djokovic has an advantage is Wimbledon, because he's just about as dominant at the Australian Open anyway, but he's not playing Alcaraz on a surface he's extremely strong, like hard court. He's playing Alcaraz on a surface he's new and learning, while it's a surface that Djokovic has been dominant. Instead, the Australian Open, yes, Djokovic a bit better, but Alcaraz is also great and has lots of experience there and lots of success on hard courts. So what I'm saying is, of the two that Djokovic is dominant, Wimbledon and the Australian Open, he would rather it be on grass, where Alcaraz is just new to the surface, as opposed to hard court, where Alcaraz has been dominant too there, right? So that's why this is the best chance, and this is the hardest place for Alcaraz to beat Djokovic, because Alcaraz is new on the surface. Djokovic has won it 7 times, not lost there on centre court. But Alcaraz has beat him there and done it in the big moments by winning the 5th set. He was only 2 more points in the match. It was just because Alcaraz was better than Djokovic in the big moments. And to be that good mentally, where you're 20 years old, you're inexperienced, you're beating an experienced guy who's been through so many big moments. Djokovic was not good when he was 20 years old in big moments. He's become the best guy in big moments with all the time and all the experience. But Alcaraz can just say, I don't need all that time, I don't need all that experience. I can just be better than you on the big moments and beat you in one of your 2 dominating Grand Slams, Wimbledon and do it on a surface that I'm just new to. You've dominated, that's one of your best two, but for me, I'm new to it. I'm going to come in there and I'm going to win that, and I'm going to even be better than you in the big moments, despite the fact that you're the best guy under pressure and I'm 20 and inexperienced. So for me, there's no more challenge that Alcaraz needs to pass, right? Because he's much better on hard courts and clay. So he's got a much better chance to beat Djokovic at the other Grand Slams, right? A much better chance because he's better on them. Djokovic might be a bit better at the Australian Open, but he's a lot better on hard courts, right? So this is the hardest challenge, the hardest place. Djokovic is his biggest challenger, and Wimbledon was the hardest place to beat Djokovic, and he's done it. So any other challenge now is going to be much more easier for him, for Alcaraz, right? And playing Djokovic in any other place, hard courts and clay that he's won his whole life, is going to be much easier. And even if Djokovic is a bit better at the Australian Open, he would rather do it on a surface that he's played his whole life. So this is the hardest place against the hardest player, and he's done it. And he's also done it by saying, despite all your experience that you're the best player under pressure, I'm going to come in at 20 and be better under pressure and beat you in that fifth set and hit 18 winners and 5 unforced errors and blow you off the court with power. I mean, the last time they played a full match that Alcaraz didn't cramp, Madrid, same thing. Down a set, third set tiebreaker, big moments, Alcaraz is better than Djokovic. Here, down a set, comes back, big moments, last set, fifth set at Wimbledon, he is better than Djokovic. And Djokovic was not good under pressure at all. He's become that with all this experience, but Alcaraz can just say, despite all your life building up to be this great under pressure, all your experience, I can just come in at 20 and be better under pressure, beat you at one of your best Grand Slams, and beat you on a place grass that I barely played. So for me, he's already faced the hardest challenge he can have in the game, the hardest player on the hardest court for him, and he's succeeded. So for me, every other challenge he could face in the future is going to be easier. And I mean, this is a great time because, like, if you look at Nadal and Djokovic, they've won 2 Grand Slams at 36. What about at 20? Nadal won one the year he turned 20. Djokovic won 0. So both Nadal and Djokovic have been better at 36 than 20. Djokovic's age to Alcaraz's age. Federer won 1 Grand Slam at 36, none at 20. But anyway, this is like an idea where probably 28 should peak. One's 8 years before the peak, one's 8 years after. They're both equally far from the peak. You can really see who's the better player now. And it's showing right now is Alcaraz. And I think right now, his only challenger is Djokovic. And Djokovic is going to get older where, like, already even on one of his best Grand Slams, it's hard to beat Alcaraz. But once he starts to get even older and gets further from his peak, while Alcaraz moves more into his peak, Alcaraz is going to start to dominate Djokovic, right? Alcaraz is going to dominate Djokovic and force him to retire because he's going to move closer to his peak, 21, then 22, and then Djokovic will move further away, 37, 38. But even on one of his best courts, Djokovic, on a place that Alcaraz is just learning grass, he's beating him. So as we move forward, it's going to get harder. And even right now, Alcaraz is better on hard courts than clay, so even that will be harder right now. But then as he gets older and Alcaraz gets older, it's going to be harder again. So Djokovic is not going to be around for a while. There's no other good quality players out there. There's just Djokovic and Alcaraz. Soon there's just going to be Alcaraz. He's got the best of Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic's game. Like Nadal's forehand, Djokovic's backhand, Djokovic's return of serve, Nadal and Djokovic's speed, Federer's sort of attacking play, maybe serve. And he's mentally as good as Djokovic is now at the end of his career at only 20. And we're looking at coming to a time where it's going to be probably a weak generation, where Djokovic is going to get old and retire. The big three will be gone. He could easily get 3 to 4 Grand Slams a year every year. Maybe not now, but in about a year or two when Djokovic and Nadal get old. Like, because there's one guy matching him who's about to get older and won't match him for long, and then there won't be anyone matching him. And like, for example, you look at Nadal and Djokovic, they won all the Grand Slams twice. They're good on all the surfaces, but yes, there is a surface that they're not that great on. They're good, but not not that wonderful. Like Wimbledon, sorry, Wimbledon, the Australian Open, Nadal, the French Open, US Open, Djokovic. Djokovic only won one French Open by 34. It's just because Nadal got injury problems. He's got two between 34 and 36. But there are surfaces with Nadal and Djokovic. Yes, they can find a way to get to their whole career, but they're not dominant. For me, if this is Alcaraz's worst surface and he can outplay Djokovic, who's been dominant there, then he can not just win on all surfaces, he can be dominant on all surfaces. He's going to bring that game in a time where there's a weak generation, where his last challenger, Djokovic, is getting old and not going to be around. He could easily catch up. He could easily win the most Grand Slams. He's only 20. Like Nadal had two at this age, Djokovic had zero, Federer had zero, Alcaraz is at two. And like I said, it looks like he's going to be the only dominant player. Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic all took Grand Slams off each other. So he doesn't even need to be as good as them because they were all fighting for the Grand Slams and taking them off each other, the big three. Whereas this looks like it could be a big one where he just wins everything and there's no big three, there's no three guys taking Grand Slams off each other. If one of these guys in the big three played alone without the other two, they'll get more than 30 Grand Slams. They only didn't get up to those numbers because they took a whole lot from each other. So Alcaraz doesn't even need to be as good as them, and he can get more Grand Slams because he's probably going to get it easier because he won't be in a big three era. But you could argue he's better than them at this age, what he's achieved, what they've achieved at 20 versus what he's achieved by 20. And he's mentally as good or better than all of them now at the end of their career with all their experience at only 20 years old. And then talent-wise, he's got the best of Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. So you can have a great talented player. They're not good mentally, like a Kyrgios or a Monfils that gets wasted. But when you have that kind of talent, maybe even better than anyone in the big three, and you also match that talent with the mental side just as good or better than them too, like you can achieve more than any of the Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. And then when you're probably going to have it easier opposition-wise because they play with three champions together, you might be one champion. I see Alcaraz can win the most Grand Slams. I see if it's not for injuries, I see that there's no surface, right, that Alcaraz is weak. In fact, or even like Nadal on grass or Djokovic on clay or something, where they're still good but not as amazing as other surfaces. I see he can be dominant on all the surfaces and all the Grand Slams. And if he's dominant and there's not another challenge, he could win the calendar Grand Slam many times. So huge things that are happening, and it looks like he's doing it right at a time when he might have a year of rivalry with Djokovic, but then he looks like he's set to dominate a weak era. So this guy has got more talent, I would say, than Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. And mentally, he's as good or better as any of them are now. He's only 20, and he's going to get better with experience. So I just think amazing things are possible. Of course, you never know with the injuries, but right now, at 20 years old, he's better than Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic at that same age. Because Djokovic had zero, Federer had zero Grand Slams. Nadal had two. They were both in play. He's won two Grand Slams on two different surfaces: U.S. Open hard court, Wimbledon, grass. So the only surface he's not won a Grand Slam on, right, is clay. And the guy's from Spain. He grew up on clay. And he's won Madrid and Barcelona the last couple of years. He would have won it this year without the cramp. So to say he's won on hard court and grass in Grand Slams, and it's only clay he's not won, like there's no place he'll be a bit weak. So I just think, right, I just think that Alcaraz can do great things, and of course, probably the only thing that can stop him is injury. I don't see any other rival other than Djokovic the next year. So I don't see anything. and that's it. So so yeah, great achievement, amazing what he's done in a new surface and going into and yes, when Djokovic gets surprised, it's usually the US Open and the French Open where he's not as strong. But to go in and beat him in one of his best two Grand Slams on a place you're just learning, and I just see he's maybe ready to dominate the game from now, and that's just a fact. So I think that this whole GOAT debate we've had between Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer, we could have just been debating the temporary GOAT, right? We could have just been doing that. But yeah, he's going to do great things, and that's my review of the Wimbledon final. Subscribe, bell notification, thumbs up. Have a great day, night, wherever you are in the world, and thanks for being with me. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. And I'll probably be back to preview the tournament in Canada in a few weeks. So be back for that. Subscribe, bell notification, thumbs up. Thanks for being with me, and bye for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now, guys.